Thanks for pressing play on another edition of Another Dolphins podcast. It's been a little while, but we could not be more excited to be back talking some Miami Dolphins football. Joshua Houtz, it's always nice to see you, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing much better, Jake. Like I told you, man, I was going through a little bit of I started my meds back up, my anxiety meds, and I must have just flooded my brain with too much serotonin, and I thought I was legit going to die. So if you have anxiety, depression, anything like that, please get checked and don't be scared to do so. And then make sure you continue to take your medication because I did not. I started it back up, and it was very, very bad. So happy that I get to come back on here and talk about the Dolphins because, I don't want to say it's exciting times, but some things have happened since we last talked.
It was funny. I was doing lawn work with my father about, 3 weeks ago at this point. And when trying to think of podcast ideas, we try to be a little more creative, especially with the off season, in season. Hey, there's a game. We got an injury report, whatever it may be. So I thought if there's anything that my dad and I, while doing lawn work, can still muster up the energy to yell, think it's worth talking about. So today we are going to dive into some of our favorite training camp battles. All the mini camps are coming up. The rookie mini camp already happened. So these are going to be in fluid situations. But Josh, we do have some news and notes to get to first. Blake Ferguson. I think he was actually the fourth longest tenured Miami Dolphin currently. Josh, to put you on the spot, can you name any of the other three?
On the roster right now? Or are you talking about long snappers? Zach Sealer, he has to be one of them, right? Sealer, one of them?
Sealer, 2019, yep.
If we're talking about Ferguson, we're probably right there with Tua, right? Is Tua one? Oh man, is this where we're at? Oh my God! So that's the longest tenured. And then what? Austin Jackson, would he be one of them?
Austin Jackson. There's one more. There's one more who's actually the longest tenured Dolphin. 2018, he was drafted.
I'm blanking. Let me know, man.
Who is Money it? Signs. Jason Sanders.
Oh,
still kicking, literally. But back to Blake here, a draft pick by the Miami Dolphins in 2020. He played 5 games last year before being placed on injured reserve with an illness. It was pretty interesting because he kind of grew up into being a fan favorite. He actually signed a 3-year extension with the team in 2023. But Josh, when you have that scenario midseason where he just kind of gets put on IR and the Dolphins were kind of just shuffling the deck with long snappers for a little while, this didn't seem like the biggest surprise.
No, it really didn't. You gotta wish Blake all the best, right? I mean, we know that he struggles with different things, and again, the illness that set him out for most of the season. So it kind of felt like the Dolphins were, getting ready to move on because, like you said, last season it seemed like every week, we were bringing in a new long snapper, signing for 2 or 3 games, getting rid of him, bringing in a new one. So I understand this move, but I think it does have something to do with, maybe more so his health and things like that. But I guess we'll see, right? Maybe he lands on another team's roster, and then maybe it's a business decision.
So the Dolphins had a couple long snappers under contract. Neeland Hibbett, I hope I pronounced that right. He was signed as an undrafted free agent out of Alabama. And Josh, I think he was actually one of the finalists for the Long Snapper of the Year award. Yes, that's an actual thing. So you could kind of see what the Miami Dolphins were trying to do. But in reality, they decided to go with Joe Cardona. Sounds like a New England guy through and through. They signed him as a long snapper. He's played over 160 games with the Patriots, a former 2015 5th-round pick. Josh, do you have any snapping insight about Cardona? Here we are, 3 minutes into a show, deep into the long snap talk.
No, I really don't. I mean, I'm surprised that, that you mentioned Neeland Hibbett, that he was like one of the finalists as one of the long snappers. I mean, that's crazy that that's even an award. But, bringing in Cardona, I'm just going to guess that, maybe they're also trying to pick the brain of the New England Patriots, right? We love to say how they're, trying to get some intel there. But I really don't have any opinion other than that. Like you said, he's played 160 games. And when you have a player of that type of, I guess, consistency, right? I mean, remember John Denny, he was around forever, man. So if you can fill that void, you had a young undrafted player, you had Blake Ferguson. Now you bring in a guy who's even been here longer, been in the league longer than that. I think it should be a good move, but it's long snapper. I can't honestly say that I have an opinion.
Kind of just looking the special teams unit as a whole, the Dolphins are making some changes here. They have 2 punters under contract, Josh. I wanted to ask you about this real quick because they signed former Titans punter Ryan Stonehouse, who in 2023 and 2023, he actually set the record for the longest average punt. And some people, actually that because if you're kicking it so far, all of a sudden your long snapper and your gunners have to run farther to try to tackle these guys. And it creates more open space for them, for kick returners to kind of do damage. What do you think about Miami Dolphins doing in terms of the special teams. They have a new special teams coordinator in, also from the Titans. And what I really wanted to ask you, Josh, I'm sorry to jump, but there's still two punters under contract. Ryan Stonehouse and Jake Bailey is still floating around on this roster. I wanted to get some your thoughts on this. Is there going to be a competition not for who's the better punter, but for who holds the ball better on Jason Sanders' field goal attempts?
I mean, I want to say no, but it's possible, right? Like, I think that we felt like that might have been some of the reason that we saw, the Dolphins keep around a Bailey, some of these other
Mhm.
guys in the past because of the success Sanders had. So it is telling that they still have both these guys on roster. I do think they'll eventually move on from Bailey. Would that be post June 1st? I don't know, but it could come down to that because we saw how good Sanders was at times, with different holders, and you have to think that that plays a little bit of a part in that. So, but we do know
Should it
Ryan
though?
Stone.
Do you think it
I
should?
not necessarily, right? I think I think
Mhm.
Jake Bailey, underwhelmed a little bit. Is that the right word to use? I mean, I feel like they could have
Nice.
upgraded here with Stonehouse. He has the relationship with this new special teams coordinator as well. So I feel like they're getting ready to move on, but who knows, man? With the Dolphins, anything could happen, and it could come down to maybe who can get that ball down quickest and get those laces out for Sanders. I don't know.
The Dolphins drafted a defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant, in the first round. They added another in the fifth round in Jordan Phillips. They added another in the seventh round in Zeke Biggers. Man, some awesome names, some absolutely awesome names. But the Dolphins have also claimed Matthew Butler off waivers from the Raiders. He's appeared in 15 games with one start over the last 3 seasons in Vegas. Josh, I wanted to bring this up because, like last year, the Dolphins are going to be doing this thing where, hey, who's going to be able to stick in training camp? Who's going to stick in mini camp? Obviously, Calais Campbell isn't going to come and save the day. He signed a deal with the Arizona Cardinals. But think about it, man. This was a former fifth round pick, and I don't want to just flat out compare every fifth round pick, but the Dolphins are hoping they can get something out of someone who has played in 15 games with one start over the last 3 seasons with Vegas. What are your thoughts here? And I wanted to kind of piggyback on that with the idea of a fifth round pick that's played 15 games since 2022. Are we expecting too much from Jordan Phillips to kind of step in and be that rotational guy behind Seal or Benito Jones and Grant?
It's possible they're relying on him a lot, but I mean, when you turn on the tape, I mean, Jordan Phillips is just a massive dude that's just taking on blocks and opening things up for those around him. So I think he's the perfect depth piece. This Matthew Butler signing, though, you wonder how. I mean, you have that he has ties to Champ Kelly connection, so there is some ties there with the Dolphins front office. But you wonder how the Dolphins felt about him pre-draft, right? Because that's how I always look at this. When a guy's on the waivers, a younger player, you wonder,
Great
was
point.
this a guy they liked in the draft? Is this a guy that they feel like could be a nice rotational piece? So I can't say I'm excited about this move, but I can understand it for sure, right? The Dolphins need depth. They did very well in the draft, like you mentioned with Grant, Phillips, Biggers. But I think bringing in a more experienced guy like Matthew Butler, maybe that can take some of the responsibility off of a Jordan Phillips if these guys, take time to get acclimated, take time to get accustomed to the playbook. So, would like to know what the Dolphins thought of him pre-draft. Would like to know what Champ Kelly was saying about him, but I really don't know that this isn't really a needle mover, right? I don't think Matthew Butler is going to be a needle mover, but let's be honest. I'm sure a lot of people said the same thing about Zach Sealer, and he's now one of
Good
our
point.
best players on defense.
Another addition for the Dolphins. I think they're currently at 91 players on the roster, so they should be set for training camp. The Dolphins signed former Jets and Falcons cornerback Kendall Sheffield on Monday. He started 20 out of 49 games with the Falcons, Titans, 49ers, and Jets. Josh, tell me a little bit more about him.
Yeah, I had that written down. He actually just had stops with the Titans and the 49ers because most of his starts actually came with the Falcons from 2019 and 2020. I looked up his snaps. As a rookie, he played mostly in the slot, but then in 2020, he played more so on the perimeter. So I'm not sure how that factors in here. We know the Dolphins, honestly, could probably use a little bit of both, right? I mean, we'll talk about the cornerback position, but once Jalen Ramsey goes, I mean, you're starting to just look at Cater Kohu and then a whole bunch of uncertainties. So signing a guy like Sheffield, again, I don't think it moves the needle, but when you need these veteran bodies, when you need guys that, you can hope that just, the competition can maybe bring out the best in them. I like this. He played for the Jets last year, more of a special teams player. So we'll see how that factors into things. Some guys honestly make the roster because of special teams. But again, as we'll talk about cornerbacks, I could see a world where Sheffield does stick on the roster because there are just so many uncertainties and young players that the Dolphins are relying on in this, again, big time season where they need to exceed expectations for once. So I think the Dolphins did well signing him, but I don't think, again, it's going to move the needle.
Do you see a world where Jalen Ramsey stays with the Dolphins?
I really don't. I think it's possible, right? We saw Myles Garrett, ask for a trade. I think it's Trey Hendrickson saying, that relationships can be repaired, but I don't know, man. And then I'm scrolling on Instagram and there was like, and this isn't nothing, but I saw it was the 2019 game where remember Lamar Jackson absolutely annihilated the Dolphins. The first like on that post was Jalen Ramsey. I'm like, is this guy just going like, does he hate the Dolphins at this point? Again, probably looking way too much into that, but I do think that this, relationship's probably not going to be repaired. And I do think we're 2 weeks away, a little bit 2 weeks away from the June 1st. And that's probably when a trade will likely come down. I just hope the Dolphins get some decent value, even if it is Hunter Long in a third round pick.
I'd be so cool with Hunter Long in a third round pick. I heard the Rams were actually interested in bringing him back. Obviously, the Dolphins would have to carry most of the contract. But Josh, you hinted about it. We are going to talk cornerback in a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of pause that one. The Dolphins also waived 3 players: Ryan Cooper Jr., defensive tackle Neil Farrell, and offensive lineman Chasen Hines. Josh, anyone there stick out to you?
I thought Neil Farrell, but didn't he play? He was a rotational player. I thought he was
Yeah.
okay. So I guess maybe that's the one name. But again, you see Matthew Butler, that could be an upgrade to them and, might be able to do some things that Farrell could not. So Ryan Cooper Jr., I mean, that's again, Kendall Sheffield. They kind of just replaced those guys. So we'll see how it works out for Miami, but no one's going to be, crying over any of those cuts.
I was kind of hoping with Miami's love of guards who just kind of come out of nowhere and kind of develop into being good enough. I thought Chasen Hines would end up being one of those guys. Obviously, that's not the case yet. But overall, Josh, they're just kind of bottom of the roster. They're just trying to maximize their efficiency here when you get ready for training camp to say, all right, we have a complete roster. My bad if you heard that motorcycle. But I wanted to get into this, Josh. Let's go into it. We have 4 positions here, 4 position battles to keep an eye on. And let's start with safety. Let's start in the secondary because this was a position that we all kind of thought, all right, the Dolphins are going to have to do something. Malachi Starks was an option. There was the other safety from the Gamecocks who was also available. But instead, the Dolphins have Ashton Davis, Iafiti Melifonwu, I'm still pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry, Elijah Campbell, Dante Trader Jr., Patrick Morris, and undrafted rookie John Sanders Jr., I believe. So, Josh, does anybody stick out there? Who are the leaders of the pack, and do you see any surprises happening?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it has to be Ashton Davis and Melifonwu, right? I mean, it sounded like Chris Greer even alluded to that. We already have our starting safeties kind of on the roster, so I feel like those guys are, have their a step ahead in the clubhouse. They both kind of have experience in the league and can do a little bit of everything. But I would love to see a guy like Patrick Moore step up and prove us wrong, or prove that he, can play in the NFL. Elijah Campbell has shown, I don't want to say, different, hasn't splashed at times, but we have seen a little bit of him make plays here and there, more of a special teams player. But I think right now, Ashton Davis, Melifonwu will be those main guys. I'm intrigued to see what happens with Dante Trader Jr. He says that he studies Budda Baker's tape. This is a guy that can come down in the box, can play a little bit of nickel, can also play safety. I mean, he's undersized, but I feel like when he's out there, he's playing faster than you see, and he's honestly leaving some hits on players that, leave a lasting impression. And he's even mentioned that as part of his game. So I want to see what Dante Trader Jr. becomes in this defense. But as of now, I think it's Ashton Davis and Melifonwu. And again, I think before the draft, we talked about it. After the draft, I mean, I still feel like we need some help there, right? I still feel like the safety position could have some life brought into it, but it sounds like the Dolphins are content with what they have and they're ready to roll. So Jesus, take the wheel.
Jesus take the wheel is right, especially when you have, 2 guys who don't have a lot of experience, especially, man, Jordan Poyer wasn't great, but you had 17 years of experience back there. Javon Holland, a 4-year starter back there. All of a sudden, you have guys who have to learn everything on the fly. And if there's a success story, it's going to be a 5th-round pick like Dante Trader Jr. or a 6th-round pick like Patrick Morris. So you really do wonder what you're going to have to see from those guys for them to kind of get that trust from Anthony Weaver and that defensive coaching staff. Moving on to the next one here, Mr. Houtz, running back. What on earth are the Miami Dolphins going to do at running back? Because, Josh, something that I think is so interesting about this position group, every year in the Mike McDaniel era, the number 1 lead horse running back has more than doubled the next closest running back in terms of carries. Now, this includes years where the Dolphins signed Chase Edmonds to a 2-year, $12.6 million deal. This includes trading a 5th-round pick for Jeff Wilson. This includes trading a 3rd-round pick for Devon Achane. This includes trading a 3rd-round pick for Jalen Wright. I think this position group is so damn interesting because we're going to see Jalen Wright flash. We're going to see Ollie Gordon the second, I think, flash. But What I need to figure out is why Mike McDaniel can only trust one running back at a time. I think that no matter what happens in the preseason, whether it's Jonas Gray, insert your random running back here, it doesn't matter who looks great in the preseason. What I think is the bigger issue with this group is we need to just see how Mike McDaniel's talking about these guys, because if he doesn't trust you, man, he has no issue giving the ball to Devon Achane 5'10", 190 pounds, 300 times, and that's just insane.
Yeah, that's a nice little nugget you have there, Jake. I mean, for me, I would love to not have, that big of a disparity between the RB1 and RB2, especially when you got Devon Achane. I mean, we know that he's a smaller guy. We know that he cannot be taking the brunt of those hits. And now you got Jalen Wright. You got Ollie Gordon, who, I looked it up again. 1,732 yards in 2023, 21 touchdowns. I mean, if he came out 2 years ago, these people might, he probably would have been a lot higher of a draft pick. He probably wouldn't have fell if Oklahoma State wasn't as bad as they were. So now they got some talented backs in here. They got a guy like Gordon who can go between the tackles and be that bruiser, maybe be our thunder, short yardage type guy. And then Jalen Wright, I mean, he looks like he showed some flashes last year. I think that's what the word I was looking for. I said splashes earlier. He showed some flashes last season, and you could see the vision when the Dolphins trade up for him, maybe using Devon Achane more in the passing game. But how this whole thing fills out will be intriguing as hell, like you mentioned, because you also throw in Alexander Madison, who the Dolphins signed. I don't want to say early on in free agency, but he was one of those guys they brought in pretty quickly, right? And a guy who has experience, who can carry the workload in a pinch if needed. So I like this running back room, but I would love to see Mike McDaniel, disparage some of those carries a little bit differently and maybe use Devon Achane as a passer, as we've seen, in years past. Which of these guys do you feel the most confident in, Jake, outside of Devon Achane? Because let's be honest, I think, has it been Mike McDaniel that's calling like a Marshall Faulk type running back? I mean, that guy is our Christian McCaffrey. He's our little engine that can do a little bit of everything. But outside of him, I mean, it's a bunch of guys that are just going to come in and work. And hopefully, that battle for RB2, RB3 is going to be one that's very interesting to watch.
Dude, it's so tough. I mean, you got Madison, 3.9 yards per attempt. He has 40 targets in each of the last 2 seasons. I wonder if he's going to be someone who's just going to be like one of the 6 inactives every week, and he's just going to be the breaking case of emergency if Devon Achane's not available. Because, Josh, when you're targeting Devon Achane 87 times, I don't think there's any room to give Alexander Madison the ball. I really do not see a world where he's going to be targeted often unless Achane gets hurt. So I kind of see him as like that pass catching back threat in case Achane goes down. I think last year Jalen Wright caught 3 of 6 targets. Like it was not involved in the pass game, whatever. But we did see the flashes as like that featured running back, 86 yards on 13 carries against New England. But he also, Josh, did average 3 yards or less in 5 of 9 games. He logged at least 5 rushing attempts. So while we did see that one splash game, we did see some ugliness. That brings me to Gordon, man, because I just go back to the what ifs. What if, Oklahoma State had a better offensive line? 21 rushing attempts of at least 20 yards in 2023. He's got that explosiveness, and I think he actually has some experience as a receiver, catching nearly 60 balls over the last 2 years. So when I look at Madison, you see the obvious weakness. This dude averages less than 4 yards per game on the ground. We saw what happened with him as the featured back in Las Vegas. He had those spot moments with the Vikings that I thought he was pretty impressive, but as a well-rounded back, he doesn't necessarily fit what the Dolphins need. Jalen Wright, even if the Dolphins get him going in a workhorse role, even if there's like a great matchup where he can really see the field clearly and take advantage of opponents, he's not going to be rushing the football. That leaves Gordon, man, somebody who doesn't have, whether it's because he hasn't been in the NFL yet, or it's just because we see these weaknesses on other players. But I think Gordon might be the guy to kind of step in and say, all right, well, if we need somebody to kind of be that jack of all trades, somebody we can trust to be in the backfield to do not only run the football, not only catch the football, not only pass protect, I think he has an opportunity to really establish himself.
I like how you brought up pass protection, because that was what I was going to really hone in on, because I remember last year, getting excited in glimpses and seeing a little bit of what Jalen Wright could do. Ollie Gordon's on a whole nother level as far as pass protection. I mean, you see the highlights going around on social media. I mean, he's putting players on his ass. So, I mean, things like that get you on the field, right, on third down when you need to protect a Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, that's the type of stuff that's going to get him on the field. And then, then he becomes that guy that's coming out in the backfield, catching passes. All it takes is one truck stick, and next thing you know, the Dolphins are relying on him. So I kind of do think I agree with you. I think Ollie Gordon, just being that unknown, being that guy that, has such a it is an up and down college career, but I mean, I cannot overlook that 2023 season. So to have him come in here between him and Jalen Wright, let them battle it out. But I do kind of give the edge to Ollie Gordon. And he does seem really, really hungry that, 31 other teams decided to pass on him. But whoever it is, man, I feel like this is a very good problem to have. And I do like the way this running back unit has shaped out, because we heard they had to bring in different backs this offseason. And I feel like when you're looking at it right now, this is one of the better backfields that Mike McDaniel's had.
It feels good on May 14th. But I just wonder, man, Mike McDaniel, he's in a must-win season. Last year, he had Devon Achane being the guy, and you still had Raheem Mostert. He had the 2 fumbles, and he was just kind of put on the shelf. I wonder if in a must-win season, what Mike McDaniel is going to need to see to be able to trust these guys. Because I think, like I said earlier, it's one thing to kind of, snuff out a blocker, put him on his butt in preseason in week 3. But do you really see Mike McDaniel in this must-win season trusting, a 6th-round rookie in week 15 at Buffalo? Schedule is not yet. Just going to throw that out there. But like some cold weather game in week 16, do you really see him trusting a 6th-round rookie back? I don't know.
Sounds like you're trying to talk me into this being Alexander Madison, right? Like that just makes it sound like, if they needed that back, we have this experienced
Jeff Wilson would have been great.
Jeff, yeah, we love Jeff Wilson. At least we thought, what he meant and when they should have used him, and he told us that we were wrong. So yeah, it could be your guess is as good as mine, Jake. I don't know that he can trust in that, but that late in the year, we've seen how the injuries pile up, right? They might not have no choice but to trust Ollie Gordon or Jalen Wright.
Speaking of having no choice to trust inexperienced players, got to talk a little bit about cornerback. What on earth the Dolphins are doing at cornerback? Oh, man, I wish they drafted someone, but here we are. Jalen Ramsey is still there, but we kind of assume, as you hinted at, June 1st, probably going to get traded. That would leave as Miami's starting cornerbacks as Storm Duck and Cam Smith. How you feeling about that?
You just set me up to say queasy, right, man? Like I feel so queasy about this. I mean, I love Cater Kohu. He's going to be the cornerback 1 though. And I mean, that just sounds so crazy to me. The fact that he is going to be the QB1, CB1, sorry, not QB1. 2024, he played 708 defensive snaps, 453 in the slot, 187 on the boundary. So that's why I, continue to wonder, how is he going to play on the outside? I think Travis Wingfield said that he likes his tape. He thinks he's better suited out there. I personally believe that he might be better at nickel, but in this situation, you get rid of Jalen Ramsey, you really don't have a choice, right? So you have Cater Kohu on one side, and then it's just a whole bunch of uncertainty. We hear Cam Smith needs to finally step up and do something. He played 133 snaps last year. Storm Duck only played 359 snaps last year, mostly all on the boundary. So you're going to have Storm Duck on one side as of now, right? You're going to have Cater Kohu on the other. And then what's going to happen in the slot? I looked it up. Artie Burns played a little bit of slot during his time throughout the NFL. So that might be what they're envisioning there. But even that, despite his experience, does not make me feel any better about this unit. So I would have felt so much better, Jake, if they would have somehow traded up, or somehow Will Johnson again in round 2 would have fell into his lap. I mean, there were other guys too. They drafted Jason Marshall, who was a player who, I think I had drafted him in like the 7th round of one of our mock drafts. He plays on the boundary, but he was banged up last year. He's a guy who, is a true wild card. So I don't know what the Dolphins are doing here. We know they still have conversations with Rasul Douglas, right? I think he left without a contract. Barry Jackson reported yesterday or the day before. They brought in Kendall Sheffield. So they're bringing in bodies, but none of that gives me any less, puts my anxiety at ease, right? When you're talking about the secondary, the safeties earlier, we're talking about the cornerbacks now. That to me is the biggest question mark. And for as much as I love Cater Kohu, seeing him as that CB1, not QB1, has me a little bit queasy.
Storm Duck, I think, started 2 games last year. I think if the Dolphins have 2 cornerbacks on the field, it's obviously going to be Cater Kohu. And man, from everything Chris Grier has said, he's really. Is it fair to say he kind of called out Cam Smith? Would you say is that like a?
That's how it sounded to me, right? Like I don't even think he was asked about Cam Smith, and he's like, we got to stop holding his hand, and he's got to step up. And I don't know how good of friends is he with Chris Grier's son. Like you have to be like coming over for like hot pockets and stuff for you to be able to talk to about Cam Smith like that, unless he wasn't indeed throwing shade.
They'll be one of the most interesting training camp battles, because Josh, we aren't sitting here grinding, the tape 24/7. But I think with quarterback, it's one of the positions you can kind of tell right away just by watching a game, watching preseason, that, hey, somebody doesn't look too comfortable. Man, I still go back to Cam Smith's rookie year. I think it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He got absolutely cooked on a double move, and I think that kind of stopped Vic Fangio from using him for the entire year. And the whole idea is like he's got to prove himself, he's got to show himself, yada, yada, yada. This is going to be the Cam Smith training camp. And Josh, I don't think we can talk enough about how much the Dolphins have whiffed at cornerbacks. You mentioned two guys who are disgruntled. Myles Garrett and Sam Hubbard was Hendrickson?
Trey Hendrickson, yep.
Trey Hendrickson. Sam Hubbard
They were both Bengals. They were both Bengals defensive ends.
Why are both of those players mad? Or for Garrett's sake, why was Garrett mad?
Yeah, money, right? Well, he wanted to go to a contender, but it eventually was money, right?
Jalen Ramsey just got paid. That is, I think, the most annoying thing is what the Dolphins did last offseason, whether it was ego, whether it was awareness. I don't know what it was, dude. Giving Tyreek the contract restructure, because they didn't technically add years, but they basically solidified the money. Giving Jalen Ramsey the added contract. I thought for sure there was a vision 2-3 years down the road. We're going to move him to safety. Charles Woodson, right? There were the comparisons out there that he was going to be that staple in the secondary. Oh, but Josh, this doesn't work out. The Dolphins in 2020, they drafted a first-round cornerback in Noah Igbenogany. He's starting. He's a nickel cornerback for the Washington Commanders. I'm not going to go as far to say like he's a difference maker, but like you drafted a first-round cornerback. All right, Cam Smith, 2022, second-round cornerback. It's just weird to me that the Dolphins are whiffing on these higher, cost players while you have guys like Storm Duck establishing himself. Kader Kohu was the same way. Nick Needham, who did he sign with the Browns, I think? He's the same way. So I just think it's so interesting that we're here, searching for the diamonds in the rough, wondering like, oh man, Jalen Ramsey really torched us. Well, no, you spent 2 premium picks on cornerbacks in the last 4 years, and it just hasn't worked out. I think that is such a big story, and I think that's why Chris Grier might be kind of putting Cam Smith's feet to the fire. And he did play with Grier's son, right, in college. That was kind of the joke you were making there. But, man, like, it just doesn't seem promising.
No, and I mean, that is what's so frustrating, right? They've invested so much in this cornerback room, whether it was Byron Jones, whether it was, you mentioned Jalen, there were so many things, and it just has not worked out for the Dolphins. And now you're sitting here relying on a bunch of uncertainties. You mentioned the Jalen Ramsey thing. I mean, I don't know that it's been talked about at all, but do you think any part of him wanting to leave has to do with, maybe them asking him to potentially move to safety? Maybe that's why this room looks this miserable, at the start of free agency or whatever. Maybe they had those talks. I mean, that was something that kept going on in the back of my head. But I think what it really comes down to is these guys are, they know their careers, winding down, and they don't want to have their entire season go down the crapper as soon as someone gets hurt, right? And I think that's probably the biggest thing. And maybe there is some friction between him and the coaching staff, but whatever it is, it's just so frustrating that you just, like you mentioned, you just paid the guy, you made him the highest paid cornerback based off of nothing really, right? You just did it to be out of the goodness of your heart, because he never came here and truly looked like the best cornerback that, he was never the Jalen Ramsey that we traded for. And I think that's what's so, or maybe he was, right? Maybe that's why the Rams got rid of him. Maybe that we did get exactly what Jalen Ramsey was. But in a nutshell, Jake, I want to see the way this thing works out. I want to see how these guys step up in camp. And we were sitting here saying about these guys and they're battling out camp. How do you truly, get a grasp of how good these guys are, right? They're going against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean, they're probably going to get cooked on most plays. I mean, so they're going to have to really fine tooth this thing and see which of these guys is going to be those starting, 4 or 5 cornerbacks. And again, I don't think that necessarily they're all on the roster right now. They definitely have to go out there and get a veteran. Asante Samuel Jr. has been one of the guys mentioned. We mentioned Rasul Douglas. There are some names still out there. Maybe that'll come after the June 1st, a Jalen Ramsey trade. But right now, this cornerback room is probably the scariest to me, if I'm being honest.
I think I saw, apologies if I'm wrong here, I think I saw Samuel's recovering from a neck injury and he started meeting with teams, but he's not expected to sign into July. Until July, I should say. And with that too, man, there's going to be roster cuts, roster changes where there are going to be guys available. But looking right at this depth chart, Josh, power rank these 4 players: Storm Duck, Cam Smith, Ethan Bonner, and Kader Kohu.
Okay, Kader Kohu, probably Storm Duck, Cam Smith, and Ethan Bonner, right? I mean, I'm still waiting for Ethan Bonner to be that, the unicorn that we heard he was. Isaiah Johnson's another name. I think Cat was really high on him last season as an undrafted guy, so maybe he can step up. I also think Jason Matry's another guy that's part of that cornerback group, but not a lot of names. Would you have it any different way, Jake? Those four? Would you rank them any differently?
No, I'm just trying
I
to think
wish I could
about.
put I wish I could put Cam Smith above Storm Duck. I mean, I'd love to be able to say that, but you just can't.
Yeah, he just hasn't shown enough, and I think with him we're going to be able to tell really early in the preseason too. I think we're going to being able to see who's just lining up with the ones, who's lining up across from Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think that's going to tell us so much, and we'll have to see. Man, it would be absolutely awesome. Cam Smith, year 3, emerges as that guy. I think that would be great. Obviously, some injuries have stunted his growth a little bit, but at the end of the day, man, availability, it continues to be the best ability. The last position we are going to talk about today, Josh, and I think it's honestly the most interesting, is quarterback 2. The Dolphins signed Zach Wilson early in free agency, a 1-year, $6 million deal. I think it's the third largest 1-year deal given to a backup quarterback this offseason. Daniel Jones, I think, got like $14 million. Marcus Mariota got $8 million, and then Wilson at $6 million. Are you set with him being the quarterback 2 next year?
I don't know, man. I don't know if we really have a choice either. I mean, coming into this thing, I would have loved to have Zach Wilson be that, fringe QB3. I would have much rather had a more experienced guy. But I mean, when you're sitting there and you mentioned Daniel Jones, you mentioned Marcus Mariota, I don't know that I really would feel more comfortable with any of those guys over Zach Wilson. I do think I understand why the Dolphins went with Wilson. He kind of fits the scheme a little bit, has that laser arm. And let's be honest, he hasn't been put in the best situations outside of maybe Denver last year. So I do wonder if he did call up Robert Saleh and had a little bit of a conversation with him because he was with the Jets. And, maybe they found out that this guy was a very good player, was going to come in, do everything he can to be that QB2. And it's unfortunate for the Miami Dolphins because whoever that QB2 is, there's a good chance they're going to play at some point this year. So I'm not the most confident in Zach Wilson, but based on everything that was out there, I feel like he's got a chance, right? He's got a chance to be better than a Skylar Thompson, a Snoop Huntley, and things that we've seen before. But is that really what we want? Yeah, a Pro Bowl. Is that really what we want? I mean, when you only need to win 1 or 2 games to, sneak into the playoffs like we saw these last few years, I mean, maybe all it takes is Zach Wilson just doing the unthinkable one time.
So I love what you said there. Wilson was finally put in a place to succeed in Denver, a place where you could kind of work with an offensive mind. Dude, he never overcame Jared Stidham as quarterback 2. He was the emergency third quarterback all year. And that is really what's kind of sitting at the forefront of this conversation is the idea of like, he was a third stringer last year, and we expect him to step in for one of the most injury-prone quarterbacks in the NFL. All right, I'll reel back a little bit. 21 losses compared to just 12 wins as a starting quarterback in New York. 4-7 his final year as a starter. But Josh, we should ignore quarterback wins. Quarterback isn't the only position that matters. He did have 8 touchdowns compared to 7 interceptions. He was positive. Career best 60.1 completion percentage. Not bad. We saw growth. And it was also the most sacked he's been in his career, 46 times. So while Wilson struggled with the Jets, I wish we just saw a little bit more in Denver. I think there was some story, quote unquote, about how like coaching staffs would watch Wilson practicing pregame just because, he threw the ball so well. And that just it sounds so lame to me. But I just have a hard time buying in that, in this must-win season, you're banking on this guy who's making $6 million for 1 year to come in and be that guy. That's something you give to like Calais Campbell, a 37-year-old vet, future Hall of Famer. So when you kind of think about that, and I kind of paint the picture like that, how legitimate does Quinn Ewers have as a shot to be quarterback 2? Because I just want to say too, man, call me out right away because I like to be one of the guys, don't get overhyped about a 7th-round pick. Don't get overhyped about the undrafted free agent. I think Quinn Ewers is a little unique, though.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I feel that same type of hype. I don't feel like he should have fell where he did. He was a guy that you also drafted in one of your mock drafts. But I mean, we've seen his success in college. I mean, this was the number 1 ranked player coming out, at Ohio State in 2020, 21, I guess it was, the highest ranked prospect coming out of high school. This is a guy who, has kept Arch Manning, off his back for a little bit, right? He did enough to withstand that. So I think the biggest thing for me, and the only thing that's going to prevent him from being QB2, and it shouldn't, is the money, right? They already gave Zach Wilson that guaranteed money. He's already
Mhm.
kind of, being tasked as that QB2. So that's the only reason I don't think Quinn Ewers will overtake him this year. I mean, I absolutely believe that he probably has the same ability. I feel like, as hungry as he is, you see the tape. I mean, he doesn't have that rocket arm like Zach Wilson, but he has that accuracy. He has some of the things that can really work in this offense. I think the Dolphins met with him a year ago at the Texas Pro Day, and they said they absolutely love this guy. So I could absolutely see, if money wasn't involved, how he could be QB2, how he could overtake Zach Wilson. But in my opinion, that shouldn't stop you, right? It should be the best guy. Let the best battle it out, and whoever wins the battle can can be QB2. I just don't know if it's a true competition this year. Obviously, next year it's his job, right? Yours will be that guy. It just comes down to who will the Dolphins throw out there. When if and when it happens, Tua Tagovailoa goes down. I mean, are they going to have the confidence in Quinn Ewers? Are they going to have Zach Wilson be the guy? I mean, I don't know, man. But I think money is the only thing that's keeping me from saying this is yours job to take.
I wonder how much that money can really hold viewers back. If Greer can really sit there and say, and that's a whole nother thing too. Can Chris Greer really walk in to Stephen Ross's office and say, "Yeah, we spent $6 million on this quarterback when we had other needs, but yours is going to be the QB2." Is that something you think that Stephen Ross would really buy?
No, right? It shouldn't.
So Ewers last year at Texas completed 293 of 445 attempts for 3,472 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Like you said, he kept Arch Manning off his back, and man, he's just said all the right. Oh, have I been muted that whole time?
I've heard you.
Do I
I've heard
sound okay?
everything. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. And I just wonder, man, if Ewers, just the way he's talking, he's saying like rookie mini camp, it's my time to be a leader and show everybody that I can be a guy. I just wonder if he's going to get so many opportunities as this rookie, kind of off to the side, where he could maybe try to leapfrog Wilson. I wonder if that's going to be a specific scenario, because I don't want us to get caught up too much on him being a 7th round pick, because I think there were some reports, Josh, that he wasn't going to be a 1st round pick. I think that was very well known. But once he started to kind of slip past the 3rd round, you get this kind of awkward territory where, like, well, this guy has success in college. Do we really want him to come in and not be a distraction, but be like a main talking point as like the quarterback too? Like, do we really have that value as a 4th or 5th round pick? I think the Dolphins here kind of just took him because he fell to their lap in the 7th round. And it's like, we got nothing to lose here. And I just wonder if we should ignore the 7th round like draft capital spent here, just because I think he's worth more than the 7th round pick that was spent on him, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I feel like he should have got drafted higher, and I feel like even his agent kind of alluded to that, right? Some of these teams might have been scared off by the name and having him come in and be part of that, be a distraction. But don't feel like there's a huge difference between yours and what we might get with Shador Sanders or in Cleveland, right? I mean, I feel like this is a perfect spot for him. It's an absolute shame though that he could have, probably stayed in college, went elsewhere, transferred, and made, twice as much as his rookie deal with the Dolphins or whatever, the way the college football landscape is. But he seems like he's happy in this place. And again, I feel like the Dolphins is the right situation for him. He might have been their target all along, because we heard the little rumblings about them meeting for dinner and things like that. So however it happened, I am happy that he's here, and I'm definitely intrigued. And I think the more we talk about, the more I agree. Money should not have any factor in this, right? The Dolphins paid Zach Wilson $6 million. I think he has incentives up to 10, maybe. What are the odds he hits them incentives, right? So let's let these two guys battle it out, and let's get excited about some of those training camp highlights we're inevitably going to see, right? Because I've already seen there was I think yours did throw a nice pass, and it was outstretched arms. The receiver caught it, and I was like, okay, I see you, man. And number 14 in the back there, and that 14 looks a lot better than number 0, right? Isn't Zach Wilson rocking the 0? That has to say something.
I think even Fitzpatrick, the former Miami Dolphins 14, even said something about Wilson wearing 0. It just, for a quarterback, it just does not feel like a good look. It does not feel like a good look whatsoever. Josh, we have one game released on the schedule. How do you feel about the Dolphins playing the Commanders in Spain? I think it's week 11?
Yeah, I mean, the Commanders are a tough team, and I honestly, besides being able to wake up and enjoy football early in the morning and have that whole day of fantasy football and things like that,
Oh.
I hate those overseas games, man. Like I feel like the Dolphins always struggle over there, and if it wasn't Week 11, I'd expect a head coach or something drastic to happen, right? Maybe they leave the offense coordinator over there, they just throw Frank Smith to a side or whatever. But yeah, it's nice for the game, right? Spain, I think, is the Dolphins. Is that their is that their home
Yeah.
international? Yeah. So this is the first game being played over there. But again, man, Tua Tagovailoa. I hate to do the quarterback thing, but Tua Tagovailoa versus Jaden Daniels. I mean, that's pretty fun football.
Dude, I'm right there with you. I love the idea of waking up for football. I understand the people who say it's way too much football, but like Sundays, when you kind of work your entire week of doing nothing except watching football on Sundays, man, you get that coffee, 9:30 in the morning, you get a football game. And I think it's the final international game of the year, too. So I'm sure they'll do a big blowout for that. For the Dolphins, OTAs begin on May 27th, followed by mandatory OTAs June 10th through 12th. I think that is where we could see some Jalen Ramsey drama if he hasn't been traded yet, maybe showing up. And didn't he do that one?
He showed up in a Brinks truck once. Is that what you're going to say?
Something like that.
Do some crazy stuff, man.
Show up in a hot air balloon like Antonio Brown or something crazy like
Riding
that.
a horse or something. Like I could just the so Jalen Ramsey thing. Could we see Tyreek Hill movement at all? I mean, I feel like I feel like the Dolphins, I feel like they're going to keep him around at least this year.
There's nothing.
I would be surprised.
I don't think there's anything you can do with them. I think if you could get a 3rd round pick, you do it, but I don't think you're getting a 3rd round pick because, hey, surgery, hey, all this other drama that's going around. Hey, I hope it's a Waddle year though, dude. We need Waddle to come back because everybody's talking about, Jonnu Smith had the breakout year, Devon Achane touching the ball really 300 times, but it's kind of sad seeing teams or, all the off-season talk about like what are the best position groups in the NFL? What are the best wide receiver duos? Dolphins aren't even being talked about anymore. And it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's Waddle disrespect because he's dealt with some issues. Miami's offense has struggled. But, man, I think we need to have a huge Waddle year or otherwise this entire team could be looking very awkward very quickly.
Yeah, man, that's a gut punch right there. I mean, and you're right because it just was 3 years ago, they were the number 1 receiving core, right? Every graphic had Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Oh my God, they can't be stopped. And well, something happened between then and then. So yeah, man, I would love to see Waddle step up and prove that if Tyreek Hill's gone next year, who needs him, right? Jalen Waddle was supposed to be our Tyreek Hill type player, and like you mentioned, whether it's injuries, whether it's just whatever it might have been, we want to see him take that next step and become one of those premier receivers that we honestly know he was. I mean, we all know how hyped we were when we drafted him and just how explosive a player he is. So were there any other games that leaked? I mean, I keep seeing like fake one, or at least, rumors and things like that. I don't know how much you can take into how much stock you can put into any of that stuff. And I try to avoid all of it.
Maybe Thursday Night Football in Buffalo.
Week 3, right? Yeah. I saw that one.
Apologize for our listeners.
Was Pittsburgh week 1, I think.
That's another
there was a graphic. Yeah.
Apologies to anybody who's listening to this after the schedule release, because that just means you already know and you're just yelling at us through your radio. So hand up. My bad about that. But Josh, we're in the true off season here. May, June, early July. This is when you separate the men from the boys in the podcast world, because this is the true time for content. You're making Pokemon comparisons. You're playing Guess Who, whatever it may be. This is where, you can kind of really dig into the roster building stuff. But Josh, I do want to say apologies, hand up to all the fans who have listened to the show for years, who we've been kind of MIA lately, but appreciate you sticking around. And more importantly, Josh, appreciate you sticking with me. It's always great to see your smiling face and always great to talk some Miami Dolphins football with you, my friend.
Yeah, man. And like you mentioned, thank you to all our fans for sticking it out here. I'll take the responsibility for the last week or so. And we're going to be back later this week or hopefully talk about the schedule, break it down a little bit and discuss some of our favorite matchups because, that's all we can do right now because it is that dead part of the season.
And until then, fins up.
Fins up.
Fins up.